What if everything you've ever heard about the biggest shark that ever lived was based on a bad guess? Not a little mistake. A century-long game of telephone built on wrong numbers, missing bones, and one fossil that changes the entire picture. Megalodon wasn't just huge. It was mysterious, miscalculated, and maybe even stranger than Hollywood dares to show. So how big was this prehistoric monster really? Let's peel back the layers of hype, math, and misidentification to get as close as science currently lets us. Megalodon dominated ancient oceans for almost 20 million years, long before humans ever skimmed across the surface in boats or posted shark memes on TikTok. But here's why its size matters. Scale controls everything. A bigger predator isn't just scarier. It hunts differently. It shapes ecosystems. It forces whales to evolve new survival strategies. And the bigger it was, the more heat it could hold, the farther it could swim, and the fewer enemies it had. Understanding its size helps us decode the roles it played, how it lived, and even how the whales we know today got their shape and behavior. Size is power, and in paleontology, size also tells a story. But there's a catch. Sharks don't fossilize like dinosaurs. Their skeletons are mostly cartilage, which vanishes over time instead of turning into bone. What we do have, what fills museum drawers and clickbait thumbnails, is teeth. Beautiful, deadly, massive teeth. They survive almost perfectly, but teeth alone don't tell us everything. You can measure one tooth and guess the shark's size, but you still have to make assumptions about body shape, proportions, and growth. And those assumptions? For decades, they were borrowed from the wrong shark. In the early 1900s, scientists tried to pin a number on Megalodon's size and came up with some wild figures. One estimate from 1909 put it at 24.4 meters, about 80 feet. Another in 1922 said 100 feet. Think about that. A shark nearly as long as a 10-story building is tall. The problem wasn't just ambition. It was a bad starting point. Those numbers leaned hard on reports of a supposedly gigantic great white shark measured in 1870, over 11 meters, or 36.5 feet. That report was later considered false, or at least badly measured, but it got cited over and over. So early researchers took a sketchy great white size and used it to scale Megalodon's teeth. Bingo, monster shark. It wasn't until the 1990s that things finally got more rigorous. Scientists started measuring modern great white sharks correctly, finding relationships between tooth size and body length. Then they applied those formulas to Megalodon. A 1996 study landed on a size of just over 15.9 meters, about 52 feet. Reasonable, respectable, still huge. But there's a flaw. All of these formulas assumed Megalodon's teeth worked just like a great white's. In 2002, paleontologist Kenshu Shimada realized something critical. A tooth isn't a single unit that grows the same way throughout life. The root and the crown don't scale together. If you use the entire tooth to scale up, you get a messy, unreliable estimate. So he changed the game. Focus only on the crown height. Using that approach, Shimada estimated Megalodon's length at around 15.1 meters, or just under 50 feet. That method felt cleaner. It let researchers use teeth where the roots were missing, which happens a lot. But still, what if the tooth's position in the jaw is unknown? If you pick the wrong spot, your estimate breaks. One front tooth might suggest a 50-foot giant. Another tooth from farther back might tell you it was smaller. Without a full jaw, you're guessing positions. Then came the Belgian vertebrae. A single fossilized series of 141 vertebrae pulled from Miocene-aged rock and attributed to Megalodon. This set is almost never complete in sharks, so this was a jackpot. In 2020, researchers took life-size scans of these vertebrae, paired them with a partial set of teeth from the US, and even used a great white shark's skull as a stand-in to build a digital 2D reconstruction of Megalodon's body proportions. Not just scaled off one species either. They compared 5 modern lamnid sharks: great whites, short fin and long fin makos, porbeagles, and salmon sharks. Then they extrapolated Megalodon's body shape from these living analogs. Their model suggested a roughly 16-meter shark, about 52.5 feet, with a 4.5-meter long head, a dorsal fin taller than most people, and a tail almost 4 meters high. The implication? This thing wasn't just long. It was bulky, and it looked terrifying. In 2022, the same team went 3D. They scanned the vertebrae, layered on tooth data, and fleshed it out to estimate speed and behavior. Their model concluded Megalodon could cruise faster than any modern shark, crossing oceans to hunt gigantic prey. Think whale-sized meals in single bites. They even calculated a body mass of roughly 61,560 kilograms for a 16-meter individual. That's nearly 68 US tons. Imagine a bus-sized predator doing a transoceanic road trip with nothing but blubber stops. But science doesn't stop just because a model looks convincing. In 2024, a new paper, again with Shimada among the authors, re-examined that same Belgian vertebral column and threw a wrench into the whole stocky torpedo idea. The 3D modelers had used great white measurements to estimate total length based on vertebral width. But when they added up the physical lengths of all 141 vertebrae, they got a number that didn't match. The spine itself, as preserved, was about 11.1 meters long, 36.4 feet. By contrast, the great white-based method suggested the whole shark was only 9.2 meters, or around 30 feet. That's a glaring problem. The backbone is longer than the estimated full length of the shark. Oops. So what does that tell us? According to the 2024 study, it means Megalodon had a more elongated body than modern great whites. Translation: those bulkier reconstructions probably undershot its total length. And if the body is proportionally longer, then all the past estimates built on great white math are suspect. The shark we envisioned might have been stretched out, less like a beefy freight train and more like a long, lean missile. But then another twist showed up in 2023. A study examined Megalodon's skin, specifically tiny calcified scales called placoid scales, found in association with teeth in Japan. Think of them like shark armor, covered in ridges and keels. The keels on Megalodon scales were spaced and shaped more like those on slow cruisers, goblin sharks and megamouth sharks, than on fast-moving hunters like great whites. These features hinted at a cruising speed of 0.9 to 3 kilometers per hour, not 5 kilometers per hour. So now we have a contradiction. The 3D model suggests speed and power, but the skin says slow roll with bursts of violence. Add in another revelation. Megalodon was regionally endothermic, basically warm-blooded in certain parts. That's been suspected for a while, and a 2023 geochemical study confirmed it. The logic had been that if a shark heats its body like white sharks, it must move like white sharks, fast, open ocean hunters. But then researchers discovered that basking sharks, huge plankton eaters with a reputation for lethargy, are also regional endotherms. So is the small-toothed sand tiger, a deep-water species that swims near the seafloor. Suddenly, warm-bloodedness doesn't mean fast. It just means can control body temperature. Megalodon didn't have to be a high-speed killer to be thermally special. Put it all together, and the picture changes again. If Megalodon wasn't shaped like a great white, and if its speed and metabolism weren't necessarily tied to that body plan, then what are we left with? A shark that likely had a longer, more slender body than the torpedo-like shapes in documentaries. A shark that cruised slowly, storing energy in long migrations, then exploded into action when prey got close. A shark that didn't have to look like any living species because it belonged to a completely different family, Odontids, that branched off from the great whites over 100 million years ago. You wouldn't model a saber-toothed tiger after a modern house cat. So why did we model Megalodon after a white shark? That question leads us to the most frustrating part of this entire saga. We still don't know how big it really was. The numbers 15 to 20 meters, 50 to 66 feet, get thrown around like gospel. But those came from methods that are now under fire. The 2021 tooth width model suggested a maximum body length around 20 meters. But if the shark was proportionally longer, that method could still be over or underestimating. 2024's paper said most of these estimates are probably too short, pointing to an elongated profile. So do we push past 66 feet? Do we say 70? 80? Honestly, we can't. Not yet. Until someone finds a complete or near-complete skeleton, skull, spine, fin supports, the works, we're stuck stitching together a giant from isolated pieces spread across millions of years and continents. Paleontology is a detective story with half the clues burned, the rest scattered, and the main witness made of cartilage. We can get clever, use CT scans, compare growth rates, cross-check modern analogs, but at the end of the day, the margins of error are still massive. Every paper you read ends with a cautious add-on, but we need more fossils. Here's the weird part. There might actually be one. Rumor has it that a juvenile Megalodon body fossil was once in a private collection. Some researchers hinted at its existence years ago. But nothing official has surfaced. No peer-reviewed paper, no museum unveiling, no public scans, just whispers. Imagine if that specimen showed up tomorrow. Imagine if the dental formula, the exact tooth arrangement, was finally known. Imagine if we could settle whether Megalodon's jaws functioned like a guillotine or a high-powered vacuum. Imagine if we could finally sketch its silhouette without guessing. For now, the best we can say is this: Megalodon was enormous, likely bigger than most modern estimates gave it credit for, and shaped in a way we don't fully understand. It probably wasn't just a mega great white. It was an odontid super predator, an apex hunter with a body plan that hasn't survived to the modern day. Its size estimates today, 52 to 66 feet, might be middle-of-the-road guesses that future researchers will laugh at. Maybe it topped 70 feet, maybe not. But science just took a hard look at its own methods and said, hold up, we might be wrong again. And that's the part I love, because this isn't a story of one number. It's a story of how science evolves, how one mistaken great white measurement in 1870 echoed through a century of shark research, how a single fossil from Belgium, dug up in the 1860s and scanned 150 years later, cracked the door to a new understanding. How scales the size of grains of sand can rewrite how we think a leviathan moved. We may never know exactly how long the biggest Megalodon was, but every new study slices away a little more uncertainty. And every time someone says, wait, what if that assumption is wrong? We get closer to the truth. Paleontology isn't static. It's a constant back and forth between evidence and imagination. And Megalodon, this giant misunderstood fishy of death, is still hiding secrets beneath the waves of time. So what do you think? Was Megalodon a chunky ocean missile or a long, lean titan that slid through the water like a shadow? Do you buy the new elongated model? Or do you think future finds will snap the tape measure back to 50 feet? Drop your take. And seriously, if anyone out there has a complete Megalodon skeleton in their basement, it's time to be a hero. Until then, stay curious. The ocean's biggest predator might be extinct, but the mystery around it is very much alive.